I sauntered down the steps into the yacht, and into the room that was more like a club than what I expected on a boat. And actually had 3 sleepers. Oh no, there was a 4th person passed out, halfway under a table. 4. One of them I recognized. Too bad for Bartolomeo. The owner of the yacht was someone I had been planning on having a certain kind of meeting with already. The other 3 I didn't recognize, although the fact the other 2 were women told me what had been happening. Bart had one woman curled up against him. Both were naked enough I knew what had been happening. The 2 men were equally undressed, but the big guy had rolled off the couch at some point and was basically napping under the shadow of a table. I nearly whistled as I walked along the room, taking note of everything. Like the fact Mr. Table had a boya near him. Interesting. I picked it up and checked it. Loaded. That was an easy fix, and then I put it back to where it was. There weren't a lot of people that walked around with a boya. They were clunky, heavy, difficult to conceal, overpowered weapons for most people. It only made me more suspicious about Mr. Table's identity. Was he the scav contact that Bart had? Was this guy important with the scavs? Well, I might just find out. First I hacked into all 4 of the sleeping gonks. It only took a few moments to breach their systems and put in a jammer. Any attempts to reach out for help would fail, couldn't have that after all. Then I grabbed an unopened bottle of champagne, swished it around, shook it up to make sure it was nice and frothy, and then popped the cork. The spray of champagne over Bart's face was more than enough to leave him sputtering awake with a curse. The fuck? Bastard, who did that? Is that you, Sandra? You bitch. He cursed, clearing his eyes of the frothing alcohol. Not exactly. I told him using my sexy Motoko voice. After all, this guy wasn't dealing with a teenager looking at a big score. No, this time I was a dangerous edge runner, having already taken a millionaire hostage. He jerked away as he caught sight of me. I was wearing the Section 9 gear with a few additions. The upper part of my face was covered by a set of tech gogs I had picked up. I mean, the Major had a set, so I needed one too. Especially since this was my first big gig. The fuck Bart was cut off as I pulled my Lexington out from behind me. He might be a millionaire, but he was also a North Carolina resident. He knew instantly what trouble he was in. Hey, easy. Listen, I'm sure we can work this out. Whatever bounty is on my head, I'll pay it out. Honest, I mean, this is my yacht, I have the eddies. His gibbering had obviously started waking the others. Thankfully, with the tech gogs on, no one could see my eyes as I tracked Mr. Table as he sat up from underneath the thing, taking in the sight of me pointing a gun at Bart. I'm not here because you have a bounty, Bartolomeo Mordellini. I informed him calmly. I'm here because of the multiple crates of scav-gathered chrome that is currently below our feet. I idly tapped my toes a few times to let the sound echo around. Then I went silent to let my statement fill the air, and I could see the fear on his face. Bitch. A Russian-accented voice said from behind me, but I ignored the big Russian man that was now pointing a boya at me. The fact he was mostly naked was also a reason I was doing my best not to look. Nice Mr. Stud there, champ. Let me guess, you were the scav contact Bart here is working with? Ha. As if you will ever find out, little whore. I will enjoy seeing your corpse ripped into. That was as far as he got as I drew on him. My boya casually pulled out of my shoulder holster and aimed. I purposefully drew slow, giving the fucker plenty of time to pull the trigger himself. The audible click of his boya failing to fire was very satisfying, but not as satisfying as seeing his head suddenly vanish. I let the roar of my boya echo around the room. The girls both screamed in shock at the sudden noise, both now fully awake and suddenly realizing the danger they were in. Hey. Bart called out, hands up, as I hadn't taken my Lexington away from his face, nor had I truly looked away from him. I loved Mike Hiroshi. Bartolomeo. Perhaps now you are more willing to listen? Yeah, sure, whatever you want. Yeah, the hold has the chrome. I swear they threatened me. K. Jetton had a gun up to my head. Honest. He nearly kidnapped me once and I really don't care. I told him simply because I didn't believe for a second he was just being threatened. You don't usually have an orgy with a guy that was threatening your life. Or maybe you did? Hell if I know how Night City scumbags ran things. Fucking weirdos. No, I had no doubt that Bart thought he was cool and dangerous for having gangster connections. What are you going to do to us? The woman sitting beside Bart asked. She had been slowly trying to gather her clothes to cover herself after realizing the situation she was in. You and that one aren't any of my interest. You are free to go once we get where we are going, I told the woman. Wait. What? Going? Bart asked, looking around in confusion, before seemingly remembering he was on a yacht. That his yacht could actually move. Take a look for yourself. Feel free to jump into the water if you want to escape early, but I wouldn't recommend it, I told them as I pointed at the front of the boat. I want all of you out there on the front of the boat. Get dressed and get moving, I ordered, and the girls were quick to listen, reaching around to grab clothes and start dressing themselves. Bart, that means you, I demanded, my Lexington still aimed at him, and he hurried to find a pair of pants amidst the party mess. I simply turned away, taking only a moment to grab the empty boya. Didn't want to risk someone finding some ammo for it, and headed back out and into the bridge. We hadn't gone too far. This thing wasn't exactly a speedboat, so I only made a slight adjustment to the course. Of course, as I was doing that, I was seeing a lack of 3 gonks standing out on the front of the boat so I could keep track of them. I walked back down, noticing the 3 had mostly huddled together. The girls now dressed, if not decent, while Bart looked like he was searching for something, tearing through the cabinets and couches. He probably had a gun somewhere. I fired a round into the fancy molding above his head, earning screams from all 3. Hey! Bart screamed like a girl. I said get to the front of the boat. Perhaps I wasn't clear. The 3 hurried out, barely dressed and terrified. With that done, I went back up to the bridge to navigate to the drop-off. With the 3 gonks at the front of the boat, I was able to sail it down the coast while keeping an eye on them. The one time they thought to try and sneak back inside, I had come down with a warning shot that had come much closer to hitting than they had liked. So they stayed where I wanted them. I was actually surprised at the lack of response. No NCPD patrol boats tracking us, or AVs flying in to launch a max TAC team. It was just a quiet trip through the waters until we left the sights of the city behind and towards our destination. Then slowly I spotted my stop. A few trucks sitting out near the water with a dozen or so workers ready to haul the loot out of the hold. The only place along the coast that was low enough to get on, but wasn't a beach. It was old concrete, a boat dock at one point years and years ago, but had been abandoned for decades. Ichi and Malcolm had found it, and so we had our meetup point. As I approached nice and slow, cables were thrown over, and only once I had the engine off did I head out to grab the cables and lock the boat in place. Everyone was wearing masks hiding their faces and quickly got to work, setting up a ramp and dragging hand trucks up to start unloading the crates. Richard gave me a nod as he passed by. In the end, Hiromi had pushed for using the SLS for this gig. I still hated the idea, but we needed the muscle to get this shit out of here at any real speed. Besides, as much as they all listened to me, I wasn't their boss. We all worked together, even if I did a bit more a lot of the time. Ichi, Malcolm, Hiromi and I would be keeping an eye on the trucks to make sure nothing disappeared as we transported everything back to a storage yard that Ichi and I had put together for us. The 3 gonks were pulled off the boat by a few of the SLS and pushed out of the way. There was no need to worry about holding onto them. We were in the middle of the desert, miles from Night City. They must have realized it too, as the girls mostly stayed huddled together, while Bart continued to glare and curse under his breath. Especially when crates of chrome started being pulled off the yacht. Each one made the man angrier. But he wasn't a complete fool. He kept himself quiet, just glaring. Just as the first few crates started getting pulled out of the yacht, my quadra pulled up. Hiromi had dropped me off at the marina, and had driven my quadra out to meet me. I walked over and noticed the eager look on her face as she stepped out of the car, but she didn't move away from it, just leaning against the car as she looked on as more and more chrome was put into our hands. "It's amazing," she whispered, and I nodded along as Hiromi looked on at all the hard work she had done. After all, I might be the one handling all the combat and stuff, but logistics were Hiromi's speciality. Hiromi and I watched on, after she gave me back the key to my quadra, and we watched on as the trucks were loaded up, each crate representing a ton of eddies for our pockets. Then when the hold was emptied, it was showtime. The BD needed a finale after all. I walked back onto the boat making sure it was empty. I noticed the lounge area in the lower decks was suddenly far less full of money and drugs. I rolled my eyes at the SLS, but if they wanted to grab a bonus as long as they stayed away from the chrome, I wouldn't complain. The yacht was let free despite Bart yelling asking what was going on. It took a minute to angle the yacht out to sea. Then I hit the engine and ran. I leapt off the boat, landing in the shallow water as the yacht started its journey out into the Pacific. That's my yacht, Bart yelled, looking at me in anger. But I ignored him. Unfortunately for him, the gig wasn't over yet. I walked over to my quadra under the watchful eyes of my crew, the SLS and the 3 prisoners. There I pulled out of my trunk a special surprise. The case was heaved out and then opened, and the moment the kids saw what I was pulling free, they all screamed in surprise. Then cheered. "Watch the back blast," I told Hiromi as I hefted my Uragan onto my shoulder. I knew having a rocket launcher would come in handy someday. Wait. Bart screamed, but he was held back by the guns Malcolm and Itchy were covering him with. Then I fired. The rocket launched, giving me a bit of a kick as it soared high into the sky before angling back down. The Nomad missiles were pretty good. Normal Uragan missiles were just dumbfire, but having some guidance on them was a nice trick. The missile came down on top of the yacht. The explosion was shattering. For all Bart's stupid yacht looked like a sleek stealth ship, it was just a pleasure cruiser. It ripped apart, then exploded again when its choo-choo went up. I might have made sure the fuel tanks were topped off before all of this happened. Just for the extra fireworks. The entire ship turned into nothing but shrapnel as the kids around us all cheered at the explosion. "You bitch. You blew up my yacht," Bart called out, sounding almost defeated as he fell into the sand around the concrete. He was angry. He was wrathful. He was going to be a problem. Which is why this had already been all planned. I walked over and before he could even realize what I was about to do, I put a bullet in his head. 250 XP gained. The 2 girls started shrieking as they realized I had just executed their tune. "Working with scavs meant you were a dead man. Did you think I was going to let you walk free?" I asked his corpse before turning to the girls. They both flinched, looking horrified. "Not gonna hurt either of you two. You have 2 options. Walk now, or hitch a ride back to the city. If you cause any problems though, I'll kill you." I informed the 2 women with simple words and then adjusted the Uragan on my shoulder and looked back to my crew. "Pack it up. We are moving," I called out and everyone cheered. Gig complete. BD ended. We did just as I said. Driving into the city, we dropped off the 2 women at the first metro stop we came to. They both hurried away, and that was the last I saw of them. We drove on towards the storage yard Itchy had sorted out for us. Well, mostly his work. I had unfortunately realized that if we were going to store this much loot, we couldn't just do it on our own terms. It would be picked clean far too easily. There was too much. It was too tempting. We couldn't trust the SLS to watch it without it going missing, so while they would transport, they wouldn't be the ones watching our loot. No, I had unfortunately been forced to make a deal with the devil. We pulled into a storage yard, waved in by the Tiger Claws gangsters sitting around the entrance as each truck moved in under their eyes. Inside, I pulled to the side as the trucks moved in to start unloading into a storage lot Itchy was managing. I had put Itchy and I into a room with a man I didn't want to deal with to help set this up. A man that was even now waiting for me. I unfortunately had a conversation in front of me. "Fujimura," I greeted as I stepped out of the quadra. The man was leaning against his own car, obviously waiting to see what would happen. "Kusanagi, I see you were successful," he mentioned, looking actually pleased as the trucks opened up and the many crates of chrome was revealed. "Yeah. Worked out just like I said. No issues other than the owner of the yacht was on board when I clapped it." I noticed his look and rolled my eyes. He's flatlined, as is the scav fucker he was partying with. Pretty sure it was his contact. I see. Then it was a successful gig. If one of my subordinates pulled off a success like this, I would have no choice but to promote them. He mentioned, obviously digging, but I shrugged. Too bad I'm not your subordinate. Our deal won't have any surprise complications, will it? I asked, not quite looking at the man as we both watched Itchy guide the kids into unloading. I was really glad that none of the trucks had gone missing en route. Then again, other than me driving my quadra, Malcolm, Itchy, and even Hiromi had been driving the trucks. I had been tempted to ask Nox for help as well, but there was honestly a reason I had revealed my Urigan to the kids before we left. I made it very plain that if any of them tried to run off with a truck, I would deal with them. It will not. These men are mine, and they will treat your belongings as my own. None will go missing, as long as your part of the deal is upheld. Course. Everyone wants chrome. Me, my chooms, even you. It told him. That was the price of using TC protection. Fujimura, or more specifically the Kamikaze, would have the right to get some of the chrome we gathered. Basically their Ripper would come and pick out things they wanted, and they would all be free up to a certain point. Basically Hiromi gave them a stipend they could grab some things with, the rest they could buy if they wanted to be clients. It would keep us from having to pay the TC directly as well. Honestly, the deal was pretty heavily on my side. Fujimura had seemed very pleased to try and tie me ever closer to the TC. As always, Fujimura was tying the noose around my neck all the tighter. Their Ripper would be here soon. I would have to reach out to Vic as well. See if he wanted to come down for some cheap chrome. No, I remembered Hiromi was already on that. I already noticed the way she was still hanging around inside the truck, definitely on a call with someone. Good. The sooner we turned all of this chrome into eddies, the safer we would all be. It was a lot harder to steal bank accounts than crates of chrome. I would already be hanging around the lot just to make sure no one managed to get in. A heavy hand landed on my shoulder and I didn't startle. I had of course already noticed his approach. Good job, Emoto, June said, pulling me into a side hug as he looked at the crates with pride. Yeah. Good job, me. I muttered, frowning. The job wasn't done. Not yet. Despite succeeding. Despite the potential of making a ridiculous sum of eddies from this chrome. As long as this chrome was still chrome and in our hands, it would put a target on us all. I shook myself free from June without a word and headed to look around the storage lot. I would be keeping a close eye on the chrome in the lot over the next few days until it all sold. So I was going to get a feel for the grounds. As Hiromi oversaw the SLS unloading the chrome into the storage unit, as Itchy and Malcolm congratulated each other on their new riches. As Fujimura looked on with that arrogant look on his face as if he was the one who planned all of this. I watched on, really wishing I had my Nekomata with me. Just in case. It was 4 long days later. I was doing some minor programming work on my laptop while looking over the storage lot when I noticed June of all people pull into the storage space. The TC gangsters all greeted him eagerly. June being famous was still funny to me. Of course I put my laptop away to focus on what June was doing. Simply connecting back into the camera systems all over the storage lot that let me listen in. Don't know where she is? She's been hanging around the last 4 days. June argued, and the gangster he was talking to just shrugged. Haven't seen her. June looked around in confusion. He must be wondering what was going on because every time he had texted me to try and get me to come home had been me saying I was keeping an eye on the loot. So I squinted my eyes and reached out with a finger, just letting the finger touch the top of where his head was, and then snapped a picture, which I sent him as a text. I watched on as a moment later he startled before looking around himself as he tried to figure out where I was. Then of course he just called me because June's hide-and-seek game is pretty weak. Motoko, where are you? I literally sent you a picture, you gonk. Head across the street into the office building. The lobby is open and you can take the elevator up. I've already added you into the security. Also stop trying to spot me, you are going to give my hide away. Then I hung up on him. Wakako might be a bitch for doing it to me, but it was pretty funny to do it to other people. Then I just waited, keeping an eye on the lot through the scope of my Nekomatu as I waited for June to get here. Finally the roof access door opened and June stepped out and I waved at him, my hand poking through the dark piece of carpet I had acquired from an empty floor in the office below me. No one was using it. They could have it back when I was done. Motoko, what are you doing? June asked as he stood up over me. Gonk, get down. Don't let anyone see you. I snapped back, even raising the carpet up a bit, showing him the entrance so he could slip in. The hide had been growing over the last few days. Originally just part of the AC unit chosen because I was able to get access to the plugs so I could charge my laptop. It had grown with the addition of a few chairs found in the offices below, the carpet over top, and some cushions stolen from a couch that was in the lobby, so I had something soft to sit on. Thankfully it wasn't too hot this week, and I had some nice sea breezes to double up on that. "Here, take a cushion." I offered, sliding it over, and June gave me a really mean look. There was absolutely no reason to look disappointed. I was working. Also, my pillow fort game was insane. Look at this thing. I was in the lap of luxury. "Motoko, what are you doing up here? You haven't come home in days." "I already told you. I'm keeping an eye on the loot. Hiromi, Ichi and Malcolm came by like an hour ago for another load she found a buyer for. I'm making sure it doesn't disappear before then." I argued instantly. "Fujimura-sama gave you his word that wouldn't happen. Just come home." "I know Fujimura wouldn't steal from me. Probably. But I don't trust those gonks," I said, pointing out through the peek hole made with an office chair that my Nekomata was resting on and the carpet overhanging, meaning it was only a tiny hole and it would be nearly impossible to see back through. Motoko, you pulled off an awesome gig. The TC are all chattering about what you did, hell lot of people are. The yacht theft was all over the news. No one is going to steal from you. Trusting other people not to steal from me is pretty stupid, when I can just make sure they can't," I said, using both hands to gesture to the Nekomata, which was very specifically pointing at the storage lot. "The TC won't steal from you, Motoko." "Maybe," I agreed without actually agreeing. "Whatever, fine. Tell me about your gig," he demanded, and had the audacity to steal another of my cushions to rest his back against as he leaned against the AC unit. I narrowed my eyes at the blatant theft but decided to show once again that I was the better person. Completely ignoring how everything around me was stolen in one form or another, because those were the intrusive thoughts you just didn't listen to. You'll be able to see it yourself soon once the BD comes out, but it was pretty awesome. I blew up the yacht with my rocket launcher. It exploded. I couldn't help but gush a little, and June stilled. "Wait, when did you get a rocket launcher?" "The Uragan that was under my bed? I've had it for a while now. I traded it to the Nomads. Remember when we hit that Raffen group before the Meat Man thing?" "What do you mean under your bed?" he demanded with a growl, realizing the danger I made to run. I wasn't able to escape. I ended up stuck watching over the lot for an entire week as Hiromi wheeled and dealed, selling off chrome to anyone and everyone willing to buy. Considering the amount, it was almost lucky that the TC were interested in so much of it, because offloading it was not easy for Hiromi. We definitely flooded the market for civilian chrome to rippers and the like. In the end there wasn't any trouble. Sure, we had a few people sniffing around, but they all gave up when they saw the TC guys guarding everything. Nothing big. No kids sneaking around trying to steal it. No TC grunts trying to swipe a crate. No scavs showing up to get back their chrome. Nothing. It was quiet. At least not toward the lot. Because I was so busy I had to pass on a gig that Jackie had been given by Waikiko, which sucked. Waikiko hadn't been pleased that I wasn't able to join in, but considering I hadn't heard anything, Jackie must have succeeded. After we sold everything, or at least enough of the chrome that the dregs left behind weren't really something we were going to worry about, I was able to stop lurking over the lot. For my chums, it was a week of running around selling like crazy. They were forced to protect, transport, and sell the chrome without me as I watched over the hoard. A week before June's increasing grumpiness at me not coming home ended as the chrome was finally gone. A week before we all finally met up to celebrate our success. "Cheers." Ichi called out and raised a glass. I raised my own to click with his, as Malcolm and Hiromi both joined in. We were at the hot club celebrating. "Hey. You should have told me about your little act of piracy, Motoko." Akari whined as she downed her own beer. "Akari let them enjoy their success," June said with a roll of his eyes, practically holding the Borg back from jumping into our little group. We were at the hot club, because June wanted to basically throw a party for my success and he picked the location. Akari had somehow found out about it and decided she wanted to join. I hadn't had the heart to tell him I wasn't a fan of this place, considering the old management. But it was still a TC club, and now that it had a second floor open, that is what June took over for the party. At least the second floor was nice. A bit higher class than the BD bar down below. It was more like an actual club. The couches were comfier too. I leaned back as June and Akari bickered, as Hiromi continued to look super proud. She had been on cloud 9 since we had sold the last of the chrome. Utterly thrilled with all the work she had done. Honestly, we all were. I was just more anxious about the repercussions. The looming threat of what the response could be. Which is why I was happily hanging out with the chums to relax. Motoko, when is the BD gonna be ready? Ichi asked, suddenly pulling me back into the present. I haven't dropped it off yet. I've been a little busy. I reminded them with a sigh. All my chums nodded. Unlike Junichi, Malcolm, and Hiromi had all been super relieved that I had taken up watching the loot. I'll go visit Judy soon, I assured them. You know, you could go to a TC editor, June offered, looking grumpy at the mention of my Mox friend. Nah. Judy's preem. I denied instantly. Besides, the longer it took the BD to release the better. I had actually been really tempted not to make one of the recording. Tempted to kill the 2 women that Bart had been with as well. If there had been no survivors, it would have been quieter. But the SLS had seen, the TC had known. It would have gotten out eventually. So instead I was going to be blatant about it. Show how dangerous I was, by being almost overconfident. Yeah, I had stolen the scav shipment. What were they going to do about it? Fight me? That last bit was the reason I was worried. I liked my life in Night City. I didn't want to have to worry about even more knives in the dark. I shook it off. That nagging feeling of danger wasn't any of my skills or knowledge. It was just paranoia. I took a deep breath and exhaled. So what is everyone going to do with your eddies? I asked, and suddenly my chums went silent as they all considered their wealth. We had made enough eddies to put all 4 of us into a new economic bracket. At least until we spent it all, but it wasn't like street kids like us normally had tens of thousands of eddies we could blow as we liked. Oh, well. I'm gonna save most of it for my grandmother just in case. I mean, maybe look into some chrome. Ichi offered with a casual shrug, although I noted that the last bit was less a maybe and more a definitely for the teenager. Oh, I'm getting some better chrome too. I'm thinking some subdermal. Just so I don't have to worry so much about getting shot up. Malcolm offered. Otherwise, maybe a car of my own. I wouldn't mind having my own ride. Oh. I'm going to invest it into some quality flash chrome. Hiromi happily cheered. I need to look the part. Father offered to take me to an Arasaka medical clinic for some real corpo chrome. Oh, fancy, I said, smiling, considering the Arasaka aesthetics. Yeah, that would look pretty preem on Hiromi. It might change her style to a more goth style, but I bet it would look cute on her. What about you, Motoko? I shrugged. I had a few things I wanted. I still wanted to get a Kusanagi Yaiba of my own. Motorcycles were cool after all. But I also wanted to get more chrome, and I would need to set aside 30, maybe 40 grand for a future plan. Then I needed eddies for my engineering XP grind. And I could do well with an even newer cyberdeck. I snorted. I have so many things I have no idea. I told my chums, earning laughs from Hiromi, and June chuckled at me too. So that was nice. But June reached over and pinched me. Ow, jerk. Get some more chrome, Motoko. You don't have to take something from the chrome you clept, but go get some upgrades. Promise me you'll at least get some subdermal, maybe a pain editor, and bioman as well. Just fit yourself out. I'll get the subdermal, I admitted, and all my chums cheered and June nodded pleased. I really didn't need a pain editor. Cold Blood did an amazing job of that already, and a bioman seemed silly. I didn't need a damn health bar. Good, you should protect yourself. Is there anything else you've been thinking about? He asked, prodding me, and I did have to nod. There was lots of stuff. I really wanted a Sandy after all. And optical camo. Going invisible would be so preem. I wanted to be even sneakier. Maybe some lynx paws of my own so I would be even quieter. I mean, sure, I probably didn't need that last one, but I could get some jumpy ankles. Was it time to get some leg chrome? I had to consider as my mind actually remembered it was a thing. Yeah, it might be. I would have to talk to Vic about it. He would give me dad-level advice. I woke up the next morning in my actual bed. I had decided to take a full 8 hours of sleep, just to reset myself. It felt nice to wake up refreshed and feeling good. I guess in the end I couldn't complain about what the future would hold. I would just deal with it as it came, and keep preparing just in case it was dangerous. So that was exactly what I was going to do. I got up and headed out. June was already gone. He must have been tired when he drove into work this morning since he stayed up so late partying with Akari, who was entertaining at a party while also incredibly annoying. So the usual. The sky was falling like crazy and I noticed the streets were semi-flooded. I avoided the oncoming traffic as best I could due to all the puddles and the tendency of people in North Carolina not to give a shit. So it took a bit longer than usual before I piled into my quadra and headed out into the streets safe from the rain. The streets slick with oil painting the entire road a rainbow as I drove through the traffic towards Vic's. I parked outside Misty's Esoterica like always and rushed inside to get out of the rain, earning a laugh from Misty as she watched me pull my jacket from over my head. What? It's rainy out there. I know you gonk, usually people bring an umbrella when it's raining, she teased pointing out her own neon umbrella resting in the corner. PSHHT. I don't need it, I said, although the fact I was still wiping water out of my hair had Misty giggling. Sure you don't. Here to see Vic? I don't see any bullet holes this time, Misty offered and I grinned at her tone. Nope, just a visit. I was too busy doing guard duty to see him after he put in the order for all that chrome I picked up. I heard about that. Vic mentioned it. You going to be okay, Motoko? That was a lot of stuff you dropped off, I hear. More than usual. Yeah. I muttered, still wondering that myself. I did a really big gig. I found out this rich playboy guy was working with scavs, holding onto their chrome in the hold of his yacht. So I clept it. You know, thinking about it, the NCPD will have to put piracy on my rap sheet. That's pretty cool. I muttered I would have to go check the NCPD sheet on me soon. Misty just snorted at my muttering and pulled me into a hug, which was nice. That must have been dangerous, but if you stole from scavs, that's a good thing. Yeah. It's big though. I'm worried about them retaliating. It's one of the reasons I'm here to talk to Vic. I think it's time for some new chrome. I'm ready for an upgrade. I tell her and she just nods. It wasn't like people really had that much of an issue with chrome. So Misty probably just thought I was making a big deal with all the eddies I had now. But this was me deciding to overcome my fear. Then you should go see him. Good to see you, Motoko. Come by more often, okay? I will. I'll come hang out later. We should get food or something, I agreed, earning a smile as I headed through the shop, down the stairs and into Vic's lair. Motoko. Come in, come in. You didn't say you were going to stop by, Vic called out as he turned down the sound of a boxing match playing on his small TV. Vic. I need some chrome, I said as firm as I could, and Vic noticed it. Slowly he nodded. You sure? No, I see that you are. All right, kid. Let's get you chipped up. What do you need? Let's make sure I have what you need. First, I need some subdermal. The best we can get. I don't want people putting any more holes in me if we can help it, I told him, and this time Vic frowned. A good choice, but I don't have anything that high-end in stock. I know a guy though. Give me a second, he muttered as his eyes went gold and he leaned back into his chair. Since he was obviously making a call, I wandered over to the Ripper chair and plopped in, just kicking my feet for a while as Vic tried to help me. Good old Vic. I got something. A set of Militech Armalite ballistic guard. Armalite? Isn't that a gun company? I couldn't help but ask. Armalite was a name I recognized. They made one of the most popular guns in the world, the R rifle platform. It was always weird when I came across a company that I remembered from my last life. Huh? Oh, they were about a century ago. Surprised you remember that, Vic mentioned, and I had to resist starting to whistle at my accidental reveal. They make armor for Militech now. Their subdermal is top of the line. A lot of it flooded the market after the last war. I nodded. Made sense. I bet a lot of it that hit the market wasn't brand new either. Plenty of old news soldiers dying on the street only to have their chrome stripped. It was kinda gross, but I trusted Vic. Well kid, anything else you are looking to get? Yeah. I pulled up my leg by the ankle and pointed at my legs. Know any good reinforced tendon cyberware? I need to up my mobility. But preferably something that isn't going to make my ankles creak as I sneak around. So big jumps but still quiet. Hey, that's an old wives' tale. They will be just as silent as your own ankles. But that I can do. I'm guessing you aren't looking for something cheap. I want the best of the best, Vic. I have the eddies. Better to go for quality for what I'm putting in me. Well kid, now you're talking my language. Check that screen. Let's go through a list and see what we can scrounge up, he said as he rode over and I pulled down the screen on his ripper chair, watching as the options changed until it showed a listing of all sorts of leg cyberware. Small updates, like the reinforced tendons, to nearly full chrome legs, all listed out. I shook my head at some of the many options. Just the reinforced tendons. I don't want to go crazy here, Vic. Not yet anyways. Maybe someday I'll get a matching set of limbs, I joked. Alright kid, don't worry. We'll find you the chrome you are looking for. In fact, let me check my stock. I might just have a surprise that would be perfect. He offered with a smile that I couldn't help but return. I was feeling a little nervous to add more metal into me, but not because I was afraid of psychosis or anything, but just because I wanted to make sure I was taking it slow and steady. But getting shot so much would kill me a whole lot faster than a bit of mental zaniness. Besides, I had found plenty of ways to get XP. If nothing else, I could always go demon hunting. It took 2 hours for Vic to get his delivery of the subdermal, which I did look over in a sort of fascination. The armor wasn't a solid piece like cloth, or armored panels like I expected. The subdermal instead was a sort of hexagonal mesh that could be put together like, well, Lego wasn't quite right, but you could add and remove the hexagons to adjust it to the exact size you wanted. In essence, it would be put together piece by piece beneath my skin, turning into a bullet-resistant mesh. Vic made sure to keep mentioning it was bullet-resistant, and not bulletproof despite what the marketing would tell me. Trust me, Vic. I know the difference between bulletproof and bullet-resistant. I assured him, but he just gave me his dad look and continued setting up the blueprint of where the mesh would be implanted in on his screen. The reinforced tendons were easier, something he had pulled out of storage covered in dust. Vic had talked up the chrome quite a bit and I did trust him, but they seem kinda sketchy, I muttered as he put down the container for the implant on the table beside me. These are beyond solid, kid. Professional sport quality cyberware. The stuff they fit on Night City Heat. You have no idea what that is, he said suddenly at my blank stare. I have no idea what that is. I agree. Kids these days. It's the Night City professional basketball team. I don't watch sports, Vic. I denied his excitement, turning him into a grumpy old man complaining about kids not liking the right sports ball team. Regardless, the chrome used to be owned by a basketball player, a kid that grew up here in Haywood actually. Dante, good kid, came by every once in a while for years. A few years back he came by to have me do the upgrade. He was worried his agency was setting him up to take a fall with a new set of chrome. After I checked his chrome, I swapped him up, and he said I could keep these as payment. Funny kid. Paid me afterwards anyways, Vic chuckled, but he gave me a strong look. These things are high-end sportswear. Chrome like this is in a lot of ways even better than the top-of-the-line stuff you could find. It's pricey, but since you don't care about cost, trust me. This is the chrome you want. Alright Vic. I trust you. I'm ready. Let's get chippin'. Vic stilled and gave me a look. I returned a firm nod. Alright kid. Lay back, Vic said, reassuring me with a hand on my shoulder as he gassed me up a bit and I was out. Militech Armalite Ballistic Guard Adaptation Ballistic Guard 02. Serrano Air Groove Ankles Adaptation Serrano Air 01. I was checking my status after Vic woke me up and had me sit up. You all there, kid? He asked and I nodded, shooing away the screen. Yeah, just taking it in. Bit itchy, and my ankles feel kinda big and wobbly. That's normal. Your skin is itchy because it's healing. Once it's done with that, You might feel some weird stretching. You are literally bigger on the inside now after all, Vic said, joking to try and keep me calm. The tendons is a big replacement, kid. I mean, this is the first time you've ever gotten such a big change in chrome outside of the obvious. Take it slow. He told me firmly, but I just nodded. It wasn't too bad though. I had chosen this, so I was pretty comfortable with a bit of weirdness for a little. Now normally I wouldn't even let you walk for a while, but that's professional chrome made for fast healing. And you already heal fast. So make sure you do some light exercise, starting in a few days. He cut himself off, poking my chest. Before you do something crazy, you will feel like you are running weirdly at first, and you should practice outdoors in a place. It won't be too bad if you fall to get used to your new jumping ability. I've seen a lot of fools fall to their death because they tried to leap across something they shouldn't. Got it. Take it slow, get used to it, and wait a few days for everything to heal, or Vic will give me his disappointed dad face, I joked, and to my surprise Vic almost jolted at my words, before a slow deep chuckle escaped him. Yeah, that's right, kid. I'll give you the worst disappointed dad face of your life, he said, smiling a little as he reached out, and to my surprise and maybe secret delight, he fluffed my hair. Hey. I pouted as required by all teenage girls when someone messes their hair, but he just smirked at me. Now take a puff of this now. It'll help keep the pain down, and help heal up the wounds. Yes, Motoko, I remember you heal fast, but take it anyways. Come by tomorrow or the day after at the latest. I'll want to check you out after you sleep. Thanks, Vic, I said seriously, reaching out and grabbing his wrist for a moment. Really, thanks. Hey, anytime, kid. Hey, Misty. I called out as I walked into her shop. I was very grateful no one had seen me walking up the stairs to Vic's clinic. I hadn't fallen, but the bounciness was going to take some getting used to. It was like wearing moon boots. My ankles also felt like they were made of rubber. It was fun, but in a weird sort of way. They also hurt a bit, but between cold blood and Vic's drugs I wasn't exactly bothered. Besides, I was heading home to sleep it all off. Motoko. You've been down there a while, get some new chrome? Misty offered as she waved me over to a table she was sitting at. Yeah, new ankles, and some subdermal. I kinda want to stop getting shot at all the time. I told her, and she nodded at that, trying not to look uncomfortable at me getting shot. Vic will have taken care of you though. Do you need anything? No, I'm good. I'm just gonna head home to sleep it off, and then I'll be right as rain. I offered before noticing the way she looked a little down at that. But I wouldn't mind a few minutes to rest my feet. What you looking at? I asked as I took a seat across from Misty, who looked up in delight as she started chattering about the article she was reading. Speaking of Motoko, you sure you don't want a tarot reading? Misty asked, already seeming to pull out the cards, but I shook my head, reaching out to pause her hold. No thanks. I prefer to let the future be something I make. I don't need to be told what's going to happen. I'd rather get the fun of experiencing it directly. I told her, and for a moment Misty looked like she wanted to argue, probably tell me I was getting it wrong, but eventually she just smiled and put the cards away. That's very wise of you, Motoko. Living your life as it comes. It's not like that really. I'm just too much of a gonk. If you told me something bad was going to happen, I would end up freaking out and probably just make it all worse. I laughed. It was doubly true since Misty definitely had some ability to tell the future. Best just avoid it though. I think it says a lot about you though. It means you really have your own path set out for yourself. I like it. She offered, and I beamed a little at her compliment. Hungry? Misty asked suddenly, and I couldn't help but nod, which had her beaming. 5 minutes later we were both set up in comfy chairs with some very zen ambient music playing as the two of us devoured some takeout Misty had run out to get from a restaurant nearby. It was nice. Cozy.